Thank you so much, Ken. I really appreciate that warm introduction. Very kind. And no worries, you guys will not be put on the spot, but I would love to start getting to know as many of you as possible. So I thought we could use this time at the end, and those of you that would like to share a little bit about who you are and what you do, something about yourself, what you're passionate about at the end, I would love to hear from you guys too. So it's not me talking the whole time. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started, and we'll simply get started by me sharing my screen. Oh, can you enable me to share my screen? It's telling me host disabled, attendee screen sharing.
You should be able to now. Can you try it now?
Yep. Thanks, Ken. All right, you guys. I'm really, really happy and grateful to be here with you guys today. So thanks so much, those of you that made time in your, I'm sure, very busy schedules to come to this Pauhana Brown Bag today. I know that you don't have to, so I do really appreciate you coming and being here for us to get to know each other a little bit better. Amber and I actually came up with this title together. I really appreciated chatting with her a little bit about how I wanted to frame this talk originally. So I do want to give you guys a bit of my background, where I come from, my inspiration, my experiences, and how that informs my career these days, and how it informs my approach to working with the communities I do, and really to yoga, and honestly, really to life as well. So just to start off by saying some very warm mahalos. First to Bishop Museum, to you guys for having me as a Pauhana speaker, and very, very much for being open to this partnership. Of course, just acknowledging Hawaii and the people of Hawaii and the land that we're on right now. This is Mauna Kea, sunrise from my parents' house. So the Big Island, I partially grew up over there. Very big influence on me from a young age. And this is my mother with some good family friends of ours in Yap. My parents had a really unique career, kind of intersecting the medical field with capacity building and a lot of just community resilience work. So doing medical and a lot of these work trips growing up. And that was really what started my passion and my connection to the region. Met so many incredible people who are now really extended family scattered throughout Oceania. I'm a big, big diver. I was born into a family of very avid scuba divers, given a passion for particularly marine invertebrates. I have a nudibranch picture up here because I'm a huge fan of nudibranchs, and my love for nudibranchs and the small things and the details and slowing it down is really inspired by my mother and the diving and all of the people in these islands that I had the opportunity to get to know throughout my life. This is very, very near and dear to my heart today, and its name is Guji Gu. And no, I did not make that name up, and I'll tell you more about that place in a little bit. I did put in just a quick formal background because I know many of you at Bishop probably have some connections to, whether it's the department at UH that I did my master's in. It's part of the CTAR college. It was the Natural Resources and Environmental Management department that I obtained my master's of science in. That was back in 2011. I was picked up when I moved over to Oʻahu back in 2009 by the International Fisheries Division of NOAA. NOAA, for those of you that aren't familiar, is the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, massively large body, probably the biggest in the United States that does have management over our oceans, our weather. There's a weather service, a fisheries service, and an ocean service. So I was focused in international fisheries, and it was a wonderful, wonderful experience because at that time, NREM, my master's department, was pretty weak in the ocean policy and the fisheries sciences. So I really had phenomenal support from my staff, my supervisors within NOAA to support me during my master's, which was focused on Pacific Islanders' perceptions of sovereignty and how the idea of sovereignty is involved within the international management landscape of fisheries. So I focused on international tuna fisheries. And I actually went down and worked with the organization my thesis was about, the Western and Central Pacific Fisheries Commission. I know you guys are used to a lot of acronyms, so I hope I don't overwhelm you right off the bat with all of these acronyms. But my time when I finished my master's through NOAA, based in Pohnpei. Pohnpei is an island within the Federated States of Micronesia. Spent about 4.5 months down there interning with the Tuna Commission, and I hadn't actually spent so much time on the island of Pohnpei yet at that time. And I really fell in love with the island, with many, many people there who are still extended family to this day. And so my love of particularly Micronesia and this region of the Pacific Islands was really strengthened over my time that I spent living and working there. I returned from Pohnpei and I moved to a different role within NOAA, the Federal Programs Office. That was actually when I got to know a little bit more about Bishop Museum, because they had some grants with us at that time. I maintained that job for a few years, and then I did switch over to Department of Interior. I was in a small, very specialized office here called the Office of Insular Affairs. I was actually managing all of the education funding that flows from the United States to the quote-unquote compact areas. So the Compact of Free Association would deserve a presentation all in itself. I will not go into this in too much detail, but just to explain to you guys, this was what created the pot of funding that really does support almost 100% of the Department of Education functioning in these islands, meaning every pencil, every desk, every chair, every salary, almost all of that funding comes through the Compact of Free Association. So you can imagine it was a very, very politically charged situation. It was a rather high-level position, working directly with sometimes even the presidents of these countries. And as much as I appreciated all of the time that I was able to spend down in the region and the partnerships and relationships I was able to forge, it was a bit too politically charged for me, and I ended up leaving my 8-year federal government career and taking the leap to starting something on my own. I did start a small consulting company at that time. So this is just about 2.5, almost 3 years ago now. And I combined the two careers that I had by chance been building. Yoga was never a career path for me. It was more of a passion. I was privileged and blessed to not have to worry about yoga as any kind of money-making thing because of the federal career. When I did leave the government, I decided that I wanted to be able to offer services, programs, courses, etc. in both areas. So I just put this Venn diagram up here for all of you guys to start thinking about on your own how all of these things relate to one another. Off the bat, when you maybe look at fisheries management alongside a yoga training program, there might not appear to be any similarities whatsoever, but I find that keeping the mind and the body healthy and well is absolutely important to be able to effectively manage any kind of ecosystem, especially when we're talking about Pacific Island indigenous communities having ownership and stewardship over their own resources. And there's many, many, many health issues in these islands currently. So I just formed this slide. I'm not going to read through it. You guys are welcome to read some of these trends. These trends very much inform the approach that I take to working in the regions that I do today. I believe very much in partnerships and working alongside the people that live in this region and going along their agenda. Of course, in many cases, the situations in many islands today aren't sustainable. So we're looking for many, many, many ways to create a more sustainable way of living and surviving on these islands, especially low-lying islands. With climate change happening now, many, many islanders are moving, whether it's to the United States or elsewhere, or at least outer islanders moving to population hubs in these islands. And there's a lot of reasons for these trends, but ultimately, poor education, poor health care, lack of economic opportunities, and of course some climate change factors, but really the economic opportunity, health and education issues are really the main factors contributing to a lot of this out-migration that we see. And I really do believe that the future for especially the youth, our next generation in these islands, is very much tied to the biodiversity and climate change crises that are going on in the world today. So looking at the right of this slide, I couldn't find the map I was looking for. Man, you guys, I looked so long, but I found these other two that show the same purpose. So the color highlighted zones in the top show biological diversity on the global level, the hotspots of biological diversity. Looking at the map right below it, this is actually linguistic diversity, so number of languages per region. You don't need to worry about the details. What I want you to notice is that the hotspots of biological diversity very much align with the hotspots for linguistic diversity. Especially, it's not a good map. It doesn't put the Pacific in the middle, but you can see on the right side, especially in this Pacific Island region, we have so much diversity of indigenous groups of people and languages coming right on top of these, especially marine hotspots. I always found that very, very interesting when people started to map this, finally started to realize we really need to make our communities and indigenous peoples the center of any kind of biological diversity or conservation effort. And this couldn't be more true for the lower lying atolls that are pretty much on the front lines of sea level rise and climate change. So I'm lucky enough to get to work in the Republic of the Marshall Islands. This just gives you a bit of a better idea at exactly what we're talking about when I say low-lying atolls. And as most of you probably know, the Marshall Islands are some of the lowest lying islands in the world. So leaving the government and starting my own consulting company allowed me to diversify the work that I was doing and focus in on the partnerships that I had already created that were doing incredible things. So the top left picture, this is a marine science camp that I lead in an island called Ebeye that I'm going to go in much more detail in just a moment. Throughout the time since leaving the government, I've been able to consult or collaborate or work for many institutions that I hold in a very high regard. University of Hawaiʻi, of course, a program specifically, the Pacific Masters of Education program, and it's a place-based STEM-emphasized Masters of Education program. And I was brought on to lead a marine science actual field camp experience for the students in this program. The students in the lower right, they're actually all of the educators for the RMI. So they're the administrators, the principals, the teachers. They're really the people that run the Department of Education for the RMI. And there's almost no marine science at the high school level here. So this was a really big step towards getting more marine science into Republic of Marshall Islands high school curriculum to start exposing the whole high school system to marine science at an earlier age. I also collaborated, did some consulting with PREL, the Pacific Resources for Education and Learning. I was able to work directly with the DOE in the Republic of the Marshall Islands on some other marine science capacity building and curriculum work. And I also work directly with some wonderful nonprofits. I just listed one here that I will talk about a little bit in Kosrae Island, which is part of Micronesia. Okay, so with that, I'm going to go into a little bit more detail about the Marine Science Camp in the Marshall Islands. Partially, I wanted to go into this because of what Bishop Museum does, but also because this is really my favorite project and program that I have the honor of working on. So Kwajalein, I'm hoping that you guys know, but if not, we'll talk about that in just a moment. Ebeye is a very, very unique Pacific island. It's one of the most densely populated places in the world. So it's only about 30 hectares, so about 80 acres, if that metric helps the brain think about it. You can also think it in terms of mileage. It's literally about 2.5 miles long and just a half a mile wide. So it's a quite small actual geographical land area, but on that small area, there's 11 to 13,000 people living there. We don't have any recent census data. They used to say 15,000, but I believe it's closer to about 13 now. And if you can believe it, half of those 13,000 people, at least half, now we think maybe even 60% or so, are under 18 years old. So there's many, many youth on this island. Has one of the highest teen pregnancy and birth rates in the world. And there's many, many other social, cultural, political, geographical challenges that go on here. However, it's a very, very culturally intact place. And some of my most beloved partners that I forged through the years are based here. So this was why this location ended up becoming really the main site for this marine science work. And to give you guys a bit of a better idea of exactly how compact and dense we're talking about, this is a great aerial image of Ebeye. So you can see that there's so much development. There isn't really a lot of natural vegetation left on this island in particular. And there's so much damage to the marine wildlife for many, many reasons. But if you follow to the north end, I'll use my pointer, to the north end of this island, there's a little man-made causeway that takes you, actually you can drive down this chain. And Gujigu Island, where we have the camp, is actually about 3 islands past Ebeye. And to give you just an idea, Kwajalein would be up a little bit more northeast. It would be just right out of the kind of square of this photo. But Kwajalein is very, very close. So the Marshallese, for example, that work on Kwajalein, which Kwajalein, sorry, I didn't say much about it, is the United States' largest missile firing army installation in the world. So it's rather surreal, to be honest, in the middle of the vast Pacific. And we have this massive, massive installation. And Marshallese that work on Kwajalein shuttle back and forth on a boat. So there's a ferry, it goes all day long. It's very quick. So it's very, very close by to the Army installation, and many, many, many youth living on this island. So the topics that we cover specifically in the Marine Science Camp I lead are rather vast. The camp is a whole month long, so we're lucky to have a lot of time to get into all of these areas of marine science. I won't read through it, but you see we cover a pretty comprehensive view of marine science. I go into both science and management, and then the field methods and the skills are usually the campers and usually my favorite part of this program. And they actually do get to practice collecting scientific data about their own marine ecosystems. This is the first time a program like this has really existed throughout the Marshall Islands. So it's a wonderful, wonderful opportunity that I've been really lucky to bring to this region. I cannot take full credit for this course. There's an incredible course at the University of Hawaii called Quest. That's what Quest stands for. And now Quest is actually also at the American Samoa Community College. It's at Guam it's at University of Guam, and we're still working on getting it to the Marianas, but it was so exciting to be able to. I had worked with the American Samoa version, which is a snorkel-based version. So the English competency rates in the Marshalls and Micronesia are a bit lower than some of these other islands. So we don't go quite as technical into the science, but we definitely still cover a vast amount of knowledge. So this camp takes place every summer. I would normally be gearing up to fly down this week, actually. Of course, I'm so disappointed it's not happening this summer, but it was started actually 4 years ago by the Associate Commissioner for Education of Kwajalein Atoll in particular, wonderful person named Jelton Anjane, who I actually met in the Department of Interior role, and we formed a great relationship. We talked a lot about marine science then, and when I eventually left the government, I was so happy that it worked out to bring marine science to the summer camp. So I missed the first year, but the marine science camp has been involved the last 2 years of the camp. This would have been the 4th year. It's for anywhere from 8th to 12th graders. It's kids from all over Ebeye. It used to be a more of a mix of at-risk and some of the top scoring students, but like I said earlier, this island is very, very culturally intact. So in the Marshall Islands, your family name and title is related to land, your land ownership. So for example, the family that owned the island of Kwajalein, the military base is now on, actually the military pays a lease to this family to have their base on their island. It's very, very, very intact still, the land title holders. So the kids that are kind of considered the more special kids on the island, they're from the titled families, they're given priority to attend this camp. Now, if you have like a gut feeling that that's not fair, I had that at first as well, but really in reality, these are the kids that will be the leaders of this island. So whenever there's an elected official and people put into the leadership positions of this island, it very, very much matters what family they are from. So having the kids that we know are going to grow up to be running the Environmental Protection Agency, running any of the health organizations, being able to start grooming them from a younger age in many, many areas that strengthen their leadership skills and help them be a more informed and fair leader, the better. So just a little bit of background on that for you guys. So our main survey site we use looks like this. It's very unideal for many reasons, but we work with what we can. And something that I love so much about working in these places is the creative side of all of it. We're constantly being very creative and working with what we have when we can, where we can. The kids actually make their own survey tools to study the coral reefs. So it's called a coral quadrat. It's just made out of a PVC pipe. As you can see here, they do all of this construction themselves. We use whatever materials are already readily available, and these coral quadrats are used to measure both the percent cover of the coral, how much is out there, as well as the health. They learn how to use a compass in relation to laying out a transect line, which is involved in this, for example, rugosity type of survey. So using a compass, laying a transect line out, and then taking your coral quadrat to various points, pre-selected points, along the transect line to measure the percent cover of the coral. So we've practiced everything on land many, many times before we take it into the water. And you see, we just use whatever we can to make this happen. We use planks of wood, we use our slippers to be the coral for them to practice. And you can imagine if you're estimating a percent cover of coral in a given space, this is also building many other skills within STEM, not just how to go measure coral. This is mathematics, this is percentages, fractions, this is estimations. Of course, scientific method came first. They made predictions, and I could go on and on, but it's a really great application of an outdoor classroom STEM type of program. We use underwater slates. They practice recording data. Gear loading in itself is so much work, how to take care of gear properly, working with one another, staying focused instead of just kind of poking and wanting to play in the water, actually being able to work together as a scientific team in data collection. Everybody's favorite part of this camp is the snorkeling and the free diving. So these kids are all incredible ocean people, but in terms of actually wearing a mask and a snorkel and snorkeling, never has been done before over here. So they had to learn how to even use the mask and the snorkel. And then as soon as, we took some time to get the snorkeling skills down, we're able to do a lot of our scientific survey work. I always give them some free time. The free diving is their favorite part. They're naturals. They're really good at it. A lot of these kids have never had a chance to do anything like this before. We're lucky when we have marine wildlife encounters, moon jellies come in. Sometimes we have some reef sharks. The area we use is teeming with fish. Even though the reef isn't in its best health, it's still a very abundant and biodiverse area that we get to study. So we do work on actually IDing some of the vert and inverts that we see out there. I won't go into too much detail about this, but this is something that I'd like to keep building on in the future as they become more and more comfortable, specifically with the English language. I don't like to go too much into the scientific names for all of these animals because it's already challenging learning about all of this in English and with my broken Marshallese. We do fish count surveys. This is kind of funny because we have this resident bait ball that hangs out with us, and the day that we are doing the fish count survey, the bait ball's in, so it totally skews the data. It's like you're supposed to count how many fish fall within a meter as you swim, and here in this case there were thousands, but we had to throw that data point out. And then my personal favorite component of this program are the traditional skills. So as all of you probably know already, many pieces of traditional ecological knowledge, traditional knowledge around the marine resources and also the land resources in these areas. So bringing in now some of you guys can think of them as cultural practitioners. In the Marshalls, they're called master fisher, master weaver, things like this. But this is a man named Joel who is a master of all of these trades. And we're so lucky he comes in from a far outer island, spends the whole month at the summer camp teaching many traditional skills. For example, this is a Marshallese fish trap that the kids built and deployed. This is a traditional, you can think of it like a hale. It's a traditional Marshallese house called a spunaman, and the girls are weaving the roofing for it. They also learn how to weave handicrafts. The Marshallese fishing method is part of the Marine Science Camp, and it's absolutely incredible. Those of you that are familiar with some traditional methods of Hawaiian fishing or even other methods throughout the Pacific Islands region, they have many similarities, especially in terms of what is used to make the netting. So this is using obviously palm, but also a special root from a pandanus tree. And the net that they make is very, very long. So we couldn't make it the real length, but it would almost be 600 feet. It's at least 200 meters when it's used, you know, in a normal setting. This method is unfortunately dying off. That's why we had to bring in someone from the outer islands to teach this, but how special that all of the campers get exposed to this. They learn how to make the net. Joel takes them out, teaches them how to use it. So as you can see, this would normally be done in a more pelagic area, deeper ocean. We do it shallow for obvious safety reasons, but the boys go out, they take the net, they encircle the school of fish. The fish are scared of the palm frond shaking, so they will not leave. Basically, it's corralling the fish into a concentrated area to make it easier for collection. And this was a really neat thing that happened at the Spartan camp last year. The kids were actually able to work with some other professionals and map their island of Ebeye on Google Earth. So there's only maybe 3 Pacific islands that have been mapped on Google Earth. I'm not talking about Hawaiʻi and some of the larger ones, but like independent Pacific islands, I think only Tonga, and I forget the other one. So it was a big deal for Ebeye that they got to map their island and for the kids to actually get to do that work themselves. We do have final presentations at the end of this month. It's beautiful. The parents in the community come in. I'm just highlighting some of the marine science final presentations. They're so creative. It's all in Marshallese, so the parents and community are able to really learn a lot from this. They do skits. They write songs. This is a skit happening down here about pollution in the water. There's a major pollution, like trash, like plastic issue going on, especially in this area. So talking a lot about that. And they're all just so strong in the arts. And the music is really unique. And I want to play you guys a song that these kids wrote themselves. I would let it play longer, but I'm sure you guys don't get exactly the same thrill that I do with that. So if you couldn't understand the lyrics to that, they were saying writing, reading, STEM, math, marine science for me, weaving in all the things that we have learned. And the Marshallese lyrics are beautiful as well, but they wrote that completely themselves, including the music that goes along with the words and lyrics. And I'm just really, really impressed by them. So I wanted to share that with you guys. And as much as I appreciate the emphasis on outdoor place-based learning, especially around marine science and the ocean in these islands, my favorite part about this program are the secondary impacts, really more of the indirect impacts. And this is the sense of pride that all of them come away with. It's part of having agency over being leaders of their own island and their own ecosystems and really each other. So a lot of collaboration with one another, including with outside people that come in that are teaching them something new, sharing a new skill. They get to practice a lot of communication. These are oral cultures usually, so there isn't a lot of communicating to teach someone about something, but they're getting stronger and stronger in that by day. We all know we need that skill nowadays. Of course, deepening connections to one another and to their land and ocean ecosystems and major leadership skills. All of this is just feeding into strengthening this next generation of leaders on the island. Great photo of the campers and I from last year, and I just wanted to put a thank you in there for someone that was down taking photos for us last year. And since there's many scientists at Bishop, I did just want to put up a little bit of my more quantitative results from this work. So I did work with a social scientist to develop surveys that I gave both before and after the program. And there's many more results, but these are some of the highlights you can see in terms of the topics for camp and after camp. Some of these top management in there, concepts are still very, very relevant in Ridge to Reef management. And it was also really interesting to see that their awareness around themselves being able to make a actual contribution to protecting their coral reefs and fisheries, that also increased, which is hopeful. All right, you guys, so I think that is the end of this presentation. I'm gonna hop back over to my other one and we will pick it back up. So thank you for listening a little bit more about the Spartan Marine Science Camp, which I love. And now we're gonna switch gears a little bit. So I know I'm supposed to tell you guys all about myself and my yoga background. I'm not gonna go too much into details about myself, but more how I've taken this work and I'm now marrying it and coupling it with the marine environmental education empowerment work. I just put some funny comics up there because, you know, they're funny and they're cute. Hope you guys got to read them. Yoga, as you see, can be about the physical body, muscle tone. It can be about the mind, living in the moment, deciding what you do with your time. It can be about community, coming together. It can just be about giving thanks. So coming back to this Venn diagram idea, I know this is probably obvious to most of you guys at Bishop Museum, but it's not to everybody that when we're talking about healthy island and ocean ecosystems, it absolutely depends on the communities that live there and manage them. So restoring ownership, authority, agency, really stewardship on all levels to Indigenous communities to manage them themselves, and then also making sure that they're able to do so, that they're healthy, mind and body healthy, that they know how, they know where to start, because we're certainly living in a very complex world nowadays. So we know these things are very nuanced, they're very dynamic. I believe this third area, cultural exchange and education, really is how I think about the outsiders coming in and interacting. So if we think about this in more of a cultural exchange and mutual education type of way, we can learn from one another. We can exchange trial and error, things that have worked, things that haven't. This couldn't be more true in the Pacific Islands. Places like here in Hawaii, getting to exchange what's happened here, because it hasn't happened all the way out there yet, and vice versa. So I love just thinking about these three components together, because really thinking about these things all together is how we come up, I believe, with solutions to really complex, nuanced problems. Of course, this promotes resiliency at the community level, but also very much at the ecosystem level as well. We're always wanting to work towards sustainability, and sustainability on all levels as well. When I say abundance, I don't just mean abundance of land and abundance of ocean and food, but I also mean an attitude of abundance, feeling abundant in the heart, in the mind, in life. Collaborative partnerships, I really believe in collaborative partnerships, especially as we're moving forward. And of course, all of this for hopeful futures for the next generations that will lead these islands. So I came up with the concept of a yoga empowerment project. That's what it was first named. Two main goals to this project. So the first was this idea of facilitating more cultural exchange, cultural immersion, education, mostly to people outside of these islands. There's a lot of misperceptions sometimes about people from these regions or about the islands in general. So a goal of bringing people down to strengthen their understanding and connection. And then the other prong of this work is based down there, actually working with various women agencies and some of my nonprofit partners to empower more of the local women to be the wellness leaders for their islands. So whether it's yoga or any other movement or more nutrition, decolonizing the diet, a lot of things. There's many traditional uses for plants that nobody knows about anymore. So trying to keep this knowledge alive. So before I show you guys the video about the Yoga Empowerment Retreat, I'm really curious, does anybody know where this is? This is a rather iconic view right here. So just unmute yourself and speak up. Amber, you can't answer, if you know where this is. No one? Well, that's kind of fun. That's kind of fun. So if you look at this beautiful woman, this is a sleeping lady. This island is named the Island of the Sleeping Lady. So I hope you guys can see it. This is her face, and she extends down from her face. So the history of this island is absolutely incredible, but I won't say too much more. Instead, I will just show you this video. Where in the world is Kosrae? Kosrae is the smallest, the most lush, tropical, and friendly of all of the Micronesian islands. It's known for abundant freshwater resources, beautiful waterfalls, ancient ruins, slow, mellow, laid-back vibe, and incredibly welcoming and friendly people. What makes the Yoga Empowerment Retreat unique is the cultural immersion component, connecting with the indigenous people of Kosrae. We learn from them about their history, their culture. They take us trekking to ancient ruins. They take us to waterfalls. They take us up the river to learn about the biodiversity of Kosrae, both the flora and the fauna. The other component that makes the Yoga Empowerment Retreat so unique is that we do a service project. Our service project this year will be around the ocean and marine conservation. We'll get to get in the water, be very hands-on, and it's very adventurous. And of course, you get to do yoga twice a day with yours truly. And we have Jackie Troller coming to lead immersions into free diving. You can even get certified if you'd like. You can think of the Yoga Empowerment Retreat as an adventure, cultural immersion, service retreat.
because all three components are emphasized. My hope is that people from Hawaii and outside of Hawaii will be exposed to a unique place, a unique culture, a unique group of people, and come away with a newfound understanding and appreciation of Kosrae. Where?
And just a thank you to my wonderful husband, Caleb, for making that video. And the second video I want to show you guys is from the service project that we just did this last year, that one of your own wonderful staff members got to be involved in. Sorry, guys. All right, you guys, so I hope you enjoyed those videos. I really do. I just threw a few more pictures up here, mostly just because I wanted to highlight this lovely wahine right here who attended the Yoga Empowerment Retreat last year. I think you guys might know her. And then we did rename the program to the Wellness Education and Leadership Program, mostly so we could obtain some local funding from the local government in Kosrae. I had just gone down and completed my first session. I have a group of 11 Kosraean women, one Filipina that lives there that joined this project. I had received some other funding for this as well, and then COVID hit. So I don't have too much photos and information to share about this just yet, but this is a project that will definitely pick back up as soon as the travel and the borders are pretty much opening back up. But the goal of this is really to start changing the perception that a lot of people have around Micronesians here. I think this is a very misunderstood group of people a lot of the time, and doing this through cultural immersion and exchange, which Bishop Museum already does so much of. And just knowing Bishop Museum's legacy, history, reputation, I couldn't be more happy and grateful to be able to partner with you guys really to start offering some yoga at Atherton. So you guys have all heard now, yoga will begin on July 6th. This is the information, and of course it's subject to change as we're all still kind of responding almost on a daily kind of time frame to what's happening around COVID. But as of now, we are scheduled to have the first class on July 6th. So it's just a few weeks away, a couple weeks away. There's the time for the Monday and the Tuesday class. They're all donation based, except the first Monday class of each month will be a free community class. And really my hope for that free community class is to do some active outreach to all of the communities that live around Bishop Museum. I have some connections to people that work with Section 8 housing, with the school system in that area. I really want to do active outreach and get as many people that live around Bishop as possible to come onto campus join some of these yoga classes and hopefully just be more involved in other programs and events and offerings at Bishop. I know I'm excited to get my membership and be more involved this year. All levels welcome. See that part in bold? I really mean that, you guys. No experience necessary. I'll be honest, my classes, they're not just stretching and breathing. They're active. So we move, they're fluid, but they're very holistic. They're very much open for all levels because you can modify, especially since we're starting with just 10 people. I'll be able to give a lot of personal attention, and I'm a very good teacher, so don't worry. If you have never tried yoga before, it's okay. I won't scare you off. And that was it, you guys. That's my last slide. I know I went way longer than I planned to, so I hope that this didn't put you to sleep. I know sometimes the death by PowerPoint experience is intense, so I hope it wasn't that way. I hope you learned something. I definitely hope you learned a lot about me. There's my info, another really, really warm mahalo for listening and coming, and definitely for hosting me next month. Thank you, guys.
Awesome, Kara. Thanks so much. That was great. So we can open it up. We have a few minutes for questions and to chat and share if you want to with Kara. So Kara can sort of go around, or if anybody wants to volunteer first to share. Kara, if you want to reiterate what you wanted people to share or say anything else about that aspect of it, please do now, but otherwise we'll just open it up.
I can go ahead and maybe open it up because obviously Carrie alluded to our friendship and then the time that we've spent together. So I've known Kara for probably over 5 or 6 years now. I was actually introduced to her by a good friend of mine who kept pushing me to go back to yoga. And I actually used to practice yoga a lot. And then I stopped after traveling and became a very avid runner. And each day I was like, oh, come back to yoga. And so when I finally went one day, and I was very much so out of practice, and Kara teaches, like she said, a very active class, which is fantastic. So for all of you who've never done yoga, coming out of not doing yoga for a long time, I also was intimidated, but she teaches a practice that people are very mindful of being in their own space and not really having to pay attention to everybody else around you. So it was very easy to pick up, and I've gone for the past 5 years, pretty much at least once or twice a week. So she's an amazing teacher. And as I started my career here at Bishop Museum and got a little bit more deeply integrated into, you know, culture and the sciences and whatnot, I saw a lot of similarities with Kara and the work that we do here. And it was just after last year's Micronesian festival that we hosted for the first time. Kara mentioned, oh, well, I'm doing this, you know, yoga empowerment class down in Kosrae. And I was like, I should go. I should learn more. So I was fortunate enough to have a small break in my schedule that allowed for that. And I went down there, and it was a really unique experience to see all of the things that she mentioned come together. So ocean science, conservation, cultural connection, community, yoga and just movement and kind of that mind-body connection all came to 7 days was too little, I think, but even the partnerships that were forged down there while I was there was incredible to see. So she really does encapsulate all of these things that she just talked about, and is a fantastic person. So when she was looking for a place in town, you know, she was a little concerned about going back to a smaller size studio with everything that's gone on. It dawned on me one day, you know, we did yoga here a couple times, but Atherton's such a beautiful space that it might be a good opportunity to also have some outreach to some additional community members that maybe aren't so familiar with Bishop Museum. And a lot of Kara's following, who I've gotten to meet, are all wonderful people, and all these kind of diverse, you know, conservationists, ocean scientists, you know, people who are deeply connected in the community with a lot of what we do here. So I think it's a good opportunity as well, just to kind of open those people's perspectives back up to all of the amazing work that we do here. So I'm very excited that she'll be here, but I think all of you will really also appreciate it as well. So that's my piece.
Thank you so much, Amber, for everything that you just said. It's warmed my heart. I know we don't have too much time. I really would love to get to know you guys starting now. Anyone that's willing to turn your video on so I can put a face to the name. And I'm curious, what did you guys think of that presentation? I know some of you work in these exact areas. And so I'm just curious to hear from some of you. No pressure, but that's it from me.
Well, I'll speak up. Hi, Kara. I'm Richard Pyle. I'm the fish guy here at the museum. No, I was thoroughly enjoying that. Now, you showed a lot of pictures of two of the few places I haven't been in the Pacific, Kwaj and Kosrae. My very good friend Brian Green grew up in Kwaj, and so he knows Kwaj inside and out. He's affiliated with the museum, so he couldn't be here this afternoon. He had a prior commitment, but with your permission, I know he'd like to watch the recording if that's all right. But I know a lot about Kwaj through Brian. I've stopped by Kosrae many times en route to Pohnpei and Palau and all the other places. But I guess I want to reiterate that, you know, I've been a lot of places, and Micronesia in general is the most wonderful, amazing, above water and below water places I think I've ever been. So it was really nice to see that, especially your engagement with the community there and working with Quest and all that kind of stuff. It was great.
Thanks so much, Rich. I can't wait to meet you in person. And you know, I've heard Brian's name a lot before, so I really look forward to meeting him also. Thank you so much for speaking up.
Come on, everybody, don't be shy. Okay, I don't really have much to add, but you've already met me. I'm Ken. I work in the molecular lab here, and I'm also an invertebrate zoologist. And yeah, I'm thrilled to have you come to campus, not only for the yoga. I don't know if I'll participate in the yoga much, but we'll see. I might. Well, you never know. I think you have a really interesting background, and I love the idea of sort of thinking of this more sort of holistically, you know, with the community and the wellness of our environment with the wellness of the people that inhabit it. I mean, I think that's a really a great approach to thinking about it, and sort of puts us more in tune with what needs to be done. I mean, and I think it's very much like Amber mentioned and you do, it's very much in line with what we want to do at the museum. We really want to create this community that is sort of tied to this place and sort of, you know, works to preserve it and understand it in a way that, you know, we feel is our obligation. So it's really cool to continue to expand these opportunities. So I'm really excited about that.
Me too. I'm really excited about it too. Thanks, Ken, for reiterating that. And if I have anything to do with it, you will definitely try yoga at least once. And I hope all of you guys will. I really mean it. Thank you so much, Melanie, for having me and for staying for that whole presentation. I really appreciate that. Really looking forward to meeting you, Melanie, in person, and to meeting all of you guys in person.
Sorry, I had to jump off, Kara. So thank you so much. This is very exciting, and I think everything that you've been doing has been really enlightening for us, and so many of the connections that you've made are aligned with everything that we're doing. So I hope to see you soon. I'm sorry I have to run and jump, but I'm glad I was able to make it. Bye now.
Mahalo, Melanie. Thank you so much. Rich, you look familiar. Maybe we've been in meetings in the past together when I was with fisheries.
Yeah, I was feeling the same thing too. I've spent a fair amount of time on Fort Island also.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yep. I was there.
Probably passed each other in the hallway at the very least.
Yeah, definitely. So cool.
Hey, Romy, any questions from the interns at all, or are they still there anywhere? Did they have to run? They may not be there anymore. They may have had to run. I know they usually get off at 5 o'clock and usually have to bolt because their parents come to pick them up. So
Yeah, I've seen a couple walk through the parking lot here. But
oh yeah.
Anyone else feel like telling me? And if you want, you don't have to say anything about anything I just talked about. You could just tell me what you do at Bishop and what you like to do outside of Bishop Museum. Sounds good, Romy. Thank you for that. I hope they enjoyed it. That's so cool that they were able to come. You guys are very welcome. Thank you so much for staying the whole time. Me too. I'm really looking forward to getting to know you guys as well. Kelly, take it away. I know you're thinking about it.
I want to say hi.
I was just going to say thank you so much for your presentation. I think I'll definitely check out one of the yoga classes and look forward to meeting with you and talking about some of the work that you're doing. Hi.
Oh, there you are. Familiar face.
They were both here the whole time. They just
Zoom bombs.
Yeah, and I
Oh, really?
that,
Okay.
you got
I was
with
like, wait,
children,
Nori
so-
isn't even here. Okay.
Yeah, no, they were here the whole time.
the whole time.
They were hiding off in the corner. And, you know.
Yeah, because there was a Nudibranch photo in there.
Yeah,
for you,
Dave and I have been talking stage with about you behind the scenes.
Awesome.
All right, well, if there are any other sort of questions or anybody wants to chat, I will leave the Zoom open if anybody wants to chat with Kara, or if not, everyone have a really wonderful weekend. Thank you very much, Kara, for joining us and sharing that really sort of interesting story with us. Again, I look forward to seeing you around campus, and who knows, maybe I will do some yoga. I'm not sure I'll recover very well from it, but only if Rich joins in.
Sure. I'll do
Thank you
it.
guys all so much. I'll just reiterate, I really mean it. I'm very grateful for this opportunity, and I'm really looking forward to getting to know you guys. And that was a long presentation. I didn't mean to talk so much. So thank you guys for sticking around that whole time. Really, really wonderful. Thanks a lot.
No, it was great. It didn't feel that long at all. It was actually very interesting.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. Take care, everyone.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Have a good weekend. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.